I came over the pass with a salt caravan in the spring of the war's second year, and I smelled it before I saw it. Wood smoke and latrines and horse. The smell of too many men in one place for too long. Then I crested the ridge, and the valley opened up below me, and I just stopped my horse. Campfires. On both sides of a river, running off past where my eye could follow. Two armies dug in across a stretch of gullied yellow hills, close to 1,000,000 men between them, and they'd been sitting there, staring at each other for the better part of 2 years. I'd seen war out west. I had never seen anything like this. This was the biggest battle the ancient world would ever fight. Bigger than anything Rome managed. And I'd ridden a salt train straight into the lip of it. When it was over, one of the 7 kingdoms of China would be broken so badly, it never stood up again. They'd remember it for 2 things: a young general who'd memorized every book on war and never fought a battle, and 40,000 men who surrendered at the end and never went home. But the part I can't get out of my head isn't the slaughter, and God knows I saw the after of it. It is a piece of arithmetic, a sum so simple a trail cook could do it, that tells you the most famous part of this story almost certainly never happened the way they say. Let me show you Changping, everything I saw, and the one thing I counted, like a lot of wars do, over high ground nobody could afford to give up. Between 2 kingdoms, at a plateau called Shangdang, mountain passes, the kind of country where, like I've told you, whoever holds the heights holds the war. It belonged to Han, the weakest of the 7, but Qin, the wolf in the west, a kingdom that would one day swallow them all, cut Han clean in 2 and left Shangdang stranded, ripe to fall. So the governor up there made a choice. Qin had bled and marched to take that plateau. Instead, he handed it to the other big dog next door, the kingdom of Zhao. And that is how Zhao bought a war it wasn't ready for, by accepting a gift that was really a lit fuse. A rancher will tell you, free grass on another man's range is the most expensive grass there is. Qin came for it the way Qin came for everything. Hard the armies met at Changping, and Zhao sent its safest pair of hands, an old general named Lian Po. And Lian Po did the smartest, least glamorous thing a commander can do. He dug in, built walls, held the heights, and refused to come out and fight, because he could read the ground, and so could I the day I rode through. I passed a Qin supply column on a mountain track on my way out of that valley. Ox carts axle deep, drivers cursing, dead animals shoved off the trail to rot. Every sack of grain that fed a Qin soldier came hundreds of miles across mountains like that. Zhao was fighting in its own backyard. So Lian Po's plan was the oldest one there is. Don't beat them, outlast them. Let the mountains and that murderous supply road do the killing. I've wintered out a hard season more than once. And I'll tell you, sitting still and waiting is the hardest discipline there is. Looks like cowardice to everyone who isn't doing the math. And slowly the turtle shell started to work. Qin was bleeding itself white just feeding the standoff. So Qin did what Qin did best. It stopped fighting Zhao's army and started fighting Zhao's court. Qin's agents went into Zhao's capital with gold and a whisper, old Lian Po. He barely fights, half a coward, half a traitor. The one man Qin truly fears is young Zhao Kuo, a lie. But it landed on fertile ground because the young king of Zhao was tired. Tired of the cost, the waiting, an old general who wouldn't win. The grain bill alone was bleeding the kingdom dry. So, who was Zhao Kuo? The son of Zhao Shi, one of the few men who'd ever beaten Qin in open battle. In those same mountains, years before. The boy grew up soaked in the theory of war. He'd read every book. He could out-argue any general in the kingdom on tactics, supply, terrain. Beat them all with his mouth. And here is the thing the histories kept that breaks my heart a little. His own father, the great general, had said of him, "War is a place of death," and my boy speaks of it lightly. His own mother went to the king and begged him not to give her son the command. Said the boy didn't have it in him, not the talent, the gravity. A man going to war holds thousands of lives in every order he gives. It takes a reverence the boy had never learned. The king didn't listen. He pulled the old turtle off the line and handed 400,000 men to a young man who had never once commanded in a real battle. Now I have to stop the story because this is the part I promised you, the arithmetic. To understand what was waiting for Zhao Kuo, you have to understand the man Qin quietly swapped in to meet him. A general named Bai Qi, the deadliest soldier of that whole age. A man who, the records say, never lost, and the legends piled up on him the way they do on any man who keeps doing the impossible. The most famous one, to relieve an allied city, Bai Qi marched his army 500 li, 300 miles, in 8 days, a lightning strike across mountains, falling on the enemy before they knew he'd left home. Here is where a man who has actually moved animals across hard country gets suspicious. And I had just come across that country myself. So I'll tell you it straight. 300 miles in 8 days. Nearly 40 miles a day, every day through roadless gullied mountains. And an army doesn't travel light. It drags grain, water, armor, the whole tale of supply behind. I just watched ox carts sink to the axle on that very ground. And the war manual of that very age, the one they still teach from, says it plain. Force march your army 100 li chasing an advantage, and you'll lose your 3 top generals. The strong arrive first, the weak straggle, and only about 1 in 10 reaches the field. March 50 li, you lose half. The books hold verdict: an army without its supply train is finished. An army without food is finished. The old soldiers fixed a normal day's march at 30 li, and built that number right into their word for a day's travel, 30. Because 30 is what you can do and still fight at the end of it. So a whole army crossing 40 miles a day for 8 days through those mountains, and arriving fit to kill 130,000 men. Friend, you wouldn't need a sword to stop that army. You could kick it over. It didn't happen that way. It couldn't have. What likely happened is plainer. The general rode ahead fast with a small guard, reached a front where troops were already stationed, gathered them, rested them, fed them, and then struck. The 8-day miracle is a story people told afterward. Once a man's done enough real things to make the impossible ones sound true. I tell you this not to dull the shine on a great soldier, but because the same arithmetic is about to decide 400,000 lives. The man who understood supply and distance in his bones was about to fight a boy who'd only ever read about them. I'll be honest about where I watched the rest of it from. Not the tent. No drifter gets in the tent. From the high ground east of the river, where the salt road climbed out of the valley. I had a buyer to meet and a reason to linger. So I lingered, and I watched a kingdom die through a whole long autumn. Zhao Kuo arrived at the front like a man arriving at his own coronation. First thing he did was tear up the old turtle's playbook. The careful walls, the patient waiting. Gone, he'd come to win, fast and bright, and Qin let him. Bai Qi, whose name Qin had hidden under a death penalty gag order, so the boy wouldn't know who he faced, gave him a gift. He let his front lines lose, fought, fell back, bled a little, retreated. And from where I sat, I could see the Zhao banners surging forward. And I thought, even then, son, nobody retreats that neat by accident. But the boy read it as proof. This Qin army can be beaten. It is breaking, and did the thing his father feared. He bet everything. Threw his whole army across the river, all in, chasing a beaten enemy toward its camp. He charged straight into the mouth of a sack. While he drove deep, Bai Qi sprang 2 forces wide. I watched one of them from my ridge, a column peeling off north and climbing hard for the pass behind the Zhao army, the gate to home, to grain, to reinforcement. I watched that gate swing shut. The other, a fast cavalry wedge, cut between the Zhao front and its supply train and split the great army clean in 2. In one stroke, the largest army on earth was sealed off. No way back. No food in, no word out. 400,000 men surrounded. by an army barely bigger than they were. And that is the part only one man in that age could have pulled off. The book says you need 10 to 1 to surround an enemy, because trapped men fight like cornered animals. Bai Chi did it at nearly 1 to 1. He made a dumpling skin as thin as the filling and held it shut by sheer will while the Zhao army threw itself at the wall again and again and again. From the heights, night after night, you could see where they hit it. The line lit up with fighting, then went dark, then lit up somewhere else. Here is the moment it turned, and it had nothing to do with either general's genius. When word reached the king of Qin that Bai Chi had 400,000 men in a bag but couldn't quite hold the string, the king got in a chariot, rode to the country behind the front, and did the one thing only Qin's machine could do. He raised every male over 15 in 2 whole provinces and marched them to Changping. Not to fight, but to thicken the wall. I saw them come up the roads for days. Columns of farmers with spears, boys and graybeards both, going up to stand on a mountain pass and make sure not one Zhao soldier broke out, and not one grain wagon got in. That is the empire I keep circling back to. Not the swords, the system. A state that could conjure an army of farmers in a week and feed them to a siege. No other kingdom of that age could have done it. The dumpling skin held. For 46 days it held. And I'll say this for the boy, because almost nobody does. He kept that trapped, starving army in formation for 46 days. No mutiny, no mass surrender. That takes a grip on men most commanders never have. The histories that call him a pure fool are being lazy. On the 46th day, out of food, he did the only thing left, split his men into squads, and led the breakout himself, charging in waves. He was shot down in the open, and with him dead, the 400,000 laid down their arms. I left before the end. I want that on the record. Whatever was coming, I didn't have the stomach to sell salt above it, so I took my string back over the pass. I came back through that valley the following spring. I am not going to describe to you what I rode through. I'll only say the ground had changed shape, long and low and wrong, and that no grass grew where it should have, and that I got down and led my horse because she wouldn't carry me across it 400,000 men. History remembers what Bai Chi did and curses him for it. He killed them. Nearly all. The largest massacre of surrendered men in the ancient record. From that day there was a saying, to kill the surrendered brings doom, and damn near every general who ever did it came to a bad end. Bai Chi first among them. I won't defend it, but I'll tell you what I came to understand, standing in that valley, because it is grimmer than he was bloodthirsty. He just watched a king strip 2 whole provinces bare to win this fight. There was not a grain to spare, and 400,000 enemy mouths stood in front of him, in a starving country, with no land to settle them and no food to hold them. Let them go, and Zhao raises another army by spring, and you fight the whole war again. Keep them, and they eat an army you can't feed. The boy got one curse of history. He talks of war too lightly. The man got the other, the one that says some victories cost more than the loser ever pays. And when you lay it all out, neither of them at the end had a choice. The gag order. The boys all in bet. The general's impossible math of mouths and grain. Every one of them was riding a road that only ran one way. So step back. I'll tell you what I saw, and I saw most of it more than I wanted to. I saw the biggest battle the ancient world ever fought turn. In the end, not on courage and not on genius, though there was plenty of both, but on grain. On who could feed an army across a mountain and who couldn't. The wolf in the west won, because over 100 patient years, it had built the one thing none of its rivals had, a state that could count the miles, the mouths, the grain, and never once fool itself with a pretty story. And I saw a young man who knew every word in every book on war, and died because he'd never learned the one thing no book can teach, the weight of it. His own father saw it coming. They turned the boy's name into a curse that means a man who can talk a thing but never do it. 23 centuries on, it is still an insult in that language. There may be no lonelier way to be remembered. Here is what I carried back over that pass, and I'll hand it to you plain. There is a canyon between knowing a thing and doing it, and brave men fall into it every day. The boy could recite the whole art of war. He just never once stood in the place where the words turn into other men's blood. I have stood in that place. I led my horse across it. I'd not wish the lesson on anyone. Knowing isn't doing. The miles still have to be walked. The grain still has to be there. And a trail cook could check will outlast the prettiest legend ever told. The 40,000 never went home. The wolf went on to swallow the world. And in the very year, all those men died in the mountains. In a captured city, a Zhao woman gave birth to a boy who'd grow up to finish what Changping started, and put a single crown on all of China. But that is a later story. Ride with me.